Welcome to the SaaStock How-To series, in which we aim to answer questions posed by our community. I'm Alex Toomer, CEO of SaaStock, which helps SaaS companies get traction, grow and scale through our community, content and conferences. Today, I'm joined by Giles Palmer, CEO of Brandwatch. Welcome, Giles.
Thank you, Alex. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you, Giles. So the question asked by our community is how to ensure managers are being effective. I know we've spoken a lot about this sort of topic, so recently. So yeah, how do we answer the question, how to ensure managers are being effective?
I wrote down 4 things here that I think are kind of buckets for areas that point to management effectiveness, efficacy, whatever the right word is. I wrote down the managers themselves, their staff, like who they manage, the company, and measurement. And I started filling them out. I started kind of writing down things underneath each one about what each area needs to do to help manager be effective. And I realized actually that for me, it starts with the company. And it starts with what the company is asking the manager to do. So the first thing is the purpose of the company and what the company is trying to achieve. If that's clear, then the manager at least can frame where they are and what they do within the bigger picture of what we're trying to achieve here. And I think that kind of purpose idea is something that I've wrestled with a lot, and it's something that is incredibly important. And you have two ends of the purpose kind of spectrum. One is this kind of big idea, kind of managing the world's information, and another is being the very best or the cheapest airline, or having the cheapest fare airline, something like that. Having the cheapest airline fares actually is easier to rally around, because you can orientate all of your activity towards that, whereas organizing the world's information is a bit amorphous in order to kind of like, right, do we invest in a browser? Why would we do that? Well, that'll help us, blah 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 blah. So the purpose is really clear, and if the purpose is important, and if it's the more amorphous it is, the more you have to translate it into what each department, each role, and that's where OKRs come in, and all sorts of other kind of strategic planning. And like we used Lencioni's book, The Advantage, to answer the kind of the 6 questions which go from purpose right down to who has to do what right now. So but I think that's really important that the company is clear about that. And then I've written down here, responsibilities are clear and accountabilities are clear. And we've had a debate internally around what's the difference between responsibility and accountabilities. The clearest that I think we've come to is that responsibilities are, what you're responsible for. Accountabilities are better / I think almost required to sit with an individual. It's better if an individual sits with an accountability. If you have a team that is accountable, then nobody is quite sure who to kind of point the finger out, or there isn't a sense that anybody actually owns that thing. So if you could be if you can be clear about responsibilities and accountability at the manager level, that makes things a lot easier. So this is kind of in the realms of setting the manager up for success, so that they know what win looks like, what good or effective looks like. And then if there are other things that the company is responsible for, training, like training around the company, how things work around here, what the culture of this company means, what the behaviors and values are of this company. So we expect you to behave like this, and if you don't behave like this, you can't really be effective. We've had situations where we've brought somebody in who was incredibly proficient and experienced and very good at their job, but effectively they didn't mesh with the company culture and values, and they were sort of ejected like a virus within a reasonably short period of time, like a quarter. It ends up typically with them leaving, saying, "Oh, I can't do this," and them complaining about stuff. And actually, when they leave, the company tends to, the more senior, even more, this happens even more, the company kind of has a bit of a sigh of relief. Well, he was never really, or she was never one of us, that she didn't really get how we do things around here. He was blah blah blah. So I think that there's a responsibility on the company to actually train people in that, and that also goes to the interview process. And then things like the role, where the role fits in, cross-functional training, management training, if there's a way that we do things around here, how you join up with peers in other departments. As a company grows, and this definitely happened to us, silos emerge, and how you build that early matrix structure to make sure that you've got vertical expertise in one department, but it isn't kind of Chinese walled off from the rest of the organization. You've got kind of cross departmental teams, and helping managers navigate that, I think, is really important, especially if they come in and you expect them to do it themselves. It's really, really tough. And then you've got tools, laptop, software, connectivity, permissions, yada, yada, peer support, HR, company systems. So all of that stuff lies with the company. And if you don't get that right, it's tough to expect a manager to actually deliver and be effective. But then it comes down to the manager themselves. Obviously there's a lot that goes into the hiring side of things. Can they actually do the job? Do they have the skills to do the job, the experience to do the job? And then increasingly, I like the idea of actually looking at personality tests, or understanding what kind of person we're bringing into the organization and where they fit in the group that they're about to join. We did it for our executive team. There's 10 of us. It's a big team. And we found that we skew as an exec team in one sort of area. And just knowing that we tend to be like that, and therefore weak in other areas, helps us to understand our weaknesses as a group, collectively as individuals, and then as a group, and therefore mitigate for that. So I think understanding the manager and their personality and how they like to work, and how that is likely to fit into a team that is either similar or different to them is important. And then my two kind of big things about kind of work ethic and discipline, like, you know, that you have to hire for that, in my opinion. It's just a bit of a bugbear of mine. And then you've got their staff, and I think the ongoing productivity of a manager actually needs to be tied into a constant feedback loop about how they're doing. They might think they're doing great, and some of the people that work for them might not agree, or vice versa, or it might be super aligned. Some people are very self-aware, some less so. So mitigating that with good feedback, you know, constant, you know, regular, short, like the idea of having 360s where everybody goes, oh God, I can't, you know, do I really have to do this? That's a nightmare. So you want small bits of feedback on a regular basis, in order to make sure that you're kind of staying on the road and not being the sort of person that your team don't want, or vice versa. So I think that feedback from the staff is incredibly important. And then finally, measurement, like, what are you accountable, responsible for? Are you hitting your goals, your numbers, your targets, your whatever it is? And how is that laddering up into the organization? Of course, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. So you need to have clear goals and measurement criteria as much as is possible. I mean, it's harder for things like engineering. It's easier for sales managers, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. You just need to do the best depending on the role and the area. That's what I had.
And if you have all of these things in place, then do you just meet with your managers once a week, whether it's at the staff meeting, or is there more regular checkups during that period of the week?
So with my direct reports, you know, one of them's, you know, got a department of about 250 people, and then the one person who runs strategy and corp devs, she's got 2 people working for her. So there's a big span of control in that group. With her, I work with her very closely because she and I kind of work on the strategy together. And with the guy, our CRO, who runs sales and CS, you know, I have weeklies with him, but of course data gets shared and so on and so forth. What I do is, depending on what's really important in the organization right now, I spend more time with an individual who's got responsibility for that area, and I try to be clear with the rest of the team to say, look, I'm going to be spending less time on sales and CS this quarter because I'm spending more time on strategy and corp dev, or more time on product planning and product strategy, or whatever it is. So I go kind of lily pad, big area to big area, and I tend to spend a quarter, give or take, in each area. So I tend to have very deep engagements with some of my managers, depending on what where my focus is actually at that time. And then you've got the business as usual stuff, which tends to be reasonably lightweight. We have kind of a dashboard, and they are kind of, well, we're trying to get it down to kind of 9 numbers that we use to check the health of the operating metrics of the company on a weekly basis. And then there's kind of reviews, which I hate reviews. So we do them annually. I'm not practicing what I preach about doing it kind of regular written feedback. I have more regular verbal feedback with my team, because I just find a big clunky review process, just like, I dread it. So I try and avoid it. It's a bit bad.
It's all right.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much, Giles Palmer, CEO of Brandwatch, for answering our community's question on how to ensure managers are being effective.
My pleasure. Thanks, Alex.